Hello there. It's me, Oleg Moskalinsky, at least it says so on the screen. And welcome everybody to the hangout about the SEO Help companion tool business blueprint. I got all these different names for it. But basically, today I want to talk a little bit about forms, and I also want to talk about, this is a follow-up to David Amerland's hangout about his book called SEO Help, 20 Steps for Growing Your Business, or something like that. But anyway, it's an intensely helpful and useful book for any business, if you don't know, if you haven't heard about it. And there will be links at some point here where you'll be able to get to both the David's site and where you can buy the book, which is, you can get it from Amazon. And basically, if you don't have the book, you definitely need to get the book to get the actual benefits from this whole exercise that we're going to discuss here. And so without any further ado, I'm going to switch to the tool itself that we're going to discuss here. And actually, no, let's do it the other way. So the first thing, I guess, what I wanted to bring up is that, a number of people mentioned that they don't really use Google Forms much. And some people are not really comfortable. In other words, they're not used to anything like this. In the usual Office suite of applications, you have spreadsheets, you have documents, you have presentations. Everybody's used to Microsoft Office, so they look at it from that standpoint. Forms is kind of like a, foreign child almost, and they don't really look at it and understand what it can do for them. And the Google Forms are very useful from the standpoint of gathering any kind of information from whomever you want to gather it from. So the natural use for this would be things like polls, surveys, any kind of feedback that you need to get from your clients, like customer story, for example, or customer feedback. Essentially, any time you need to get information and you need to be able to store it somewhere, to be able to look at it, potentially manipulate it, and get some kind of additional reporting or analysis on it, Google Forms are an excellent tool for people who do not program. Because when you needed to do this in the past, you needed to gather some data. The way it worked is you need to go and actually write some code, most likely if it's web-based in HTML. Then you also needed to know how to do what they call CGI, or have another language like PHP, for example, is the one I usually use. Use that to actually process the information that gets entered into a simple HTML web form. And then that information usually needs to flow either as an email to somebody, or it goes into some kind of database for permanent storage, and then you get reporting and things like that. So everything needed to be done programmatically and kind of manually to be able to handle this kind of operation. And there are definitely other companies that make forms-based functionality. It's not just Google, but it's nice to be able to get something like this from Google, because most of these other companies charge for it and Google does not. So you can just create a form, and you can make it look very attractive. You can make it look very branding congruent. So you can put your logo, you can put your background, you can do a lot of customization like that. And at the same time, it's pretty easy to set up. And you set up fields, and fields can be as standard as small text field, or you can have where people enter text or numbers, or you can have multiple choice questions. You can have radio buttons, you can have checkboxes, you can have pull-down menus. All of these are easily implemented into the Google Forms interface, and you can put them on your form. And then also the information itself, when customer enters, not customer, anybody who you're sharing this form with, which could be public, could be private, could be just a circle of people. So you totally have control over who has access to using the form, and then subsequently access to the actual data as well. And the data itself ends up being stored in a spreadsheet automatically, and that way, you bypass the whole concept of knowing HTML, knowing PHP, knowing database like MySQL. And so all these different hats you have to wear to be able to accomplish the same thing by yourself are now in your hands, and you can do all of that same accomplishment just using Google Forms, and then having Google spreadsheets for the information. So that's kind of a quick. I don't want to discuss the intricate details of forms, I'll be happy to, feel free to ask me if you have any questions or anything, because I'll be happy to answer them. There's also other hangout I've done before. You can find it somewhere else on my channel, and it talks in more depth about forms. So this is, I just wanted to give kind of brief overview of what forms are used for, what they're capable of, and then specifically talk about the tool for David's book. So let's just go right into that. And the reason I talked about forms because I used the form to set up this companion for his book. And so before showing you the companion itself, a few words about the book. I'm assuming that a lot of people listening here already have the book. If you don't have the book, like I said, you can go to Amazon, get it. It's definitely an extremely worthwhile investment. They'll pay for itself many times over. So awesome book in many ways. And the reason what makes this book so awesome is it's fairly brief. It's only like 190 pages, so it's a pretty quick read, okay? And it's got all the main kind of components of SEO, something that David Amerland is an expert at and has written quite a bit about SEO, about semantic search. He is, I would say, probably the most famous, certainly, person when it comes to SEO. I'm sorry, not SEO, but semantic search, and also fairly prominent on SEO, and is very prominent in that area, and definitely being an author of multiple books, great guy as people go. In addition to that, is always very gracious about helping people and participating in their endeavors and things like that. So it's a pleasure to bring his work forward here, because it really is a great book coming from a great guy. And what he did in this book that's different compared to other books is he took and broke it down into, the book is called 20 Steps, basically 20 steps or 20 chapters. That's another way to look at it. So you have these 20 steps you need to follow to be able to really significantly improve your chances of being found on the internet by using search engine optimization, or SEO, which in the last few years has been moving, kind of a moving target all over the place, because Google keeps changing rules to a degree. At least a lot of people thought they were. And for people who were trying to utilize weaknesses of search engines, if you will, then, or they were trying to game the system, as it's called, they wound up, having some major hits from Google because they did not produce content as content should be produced, which is quality content, good content, viable, reliable, useful content. Instead, they were trying to use all kinds of techniques and tips to be able to get their websites positioned higher. And Google is constantly working on eliminating that as a situation. So SEO has been changing dramatically. But main points about how to do it right are really the same. And that's what David's talking about in this book. And he breaks it down into 20 different steps you need to undertake. And one of the things that's great about this book is it starts from the very beginning and goes all the way forward to, you can start being somebody who doesn't have anything. And the book will help you get from point A to point Z. And of course, it's got tons of useful information for anybody who is already has their Google accounts, has their websites, and basically helps them what they should do to get the SEO properly. But what makes this book extremely brilliant, in my view, is that there's a tremendous amount of information, even though it's fairly concise, but at the same time, still a lot of information. And so what he did was he broke it down to these tiny little chunks to make it easier for you to digest and to follow. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news is that the book itself has 10 action steps, as he calls them, in every single one of those 20 steps. So that amounts to 200 different action items that you're supposed to take care of. And so that becomes almost like, wow, when you think about it, that you need to take care of all these things to get your SEO right. It's a major, major challenge. So what I would recommend you do is you take the book, get the book first, you read the entire book and completely skip, just don't even look at those action steps. Just read the book, all the chapters from beginning to end, cover to cover. It'll give you a basic idea about different things that David is talking about and how you should look at them and things like that. Don't get stuck. Don't worry about implementing this or that. Don't do anything. Just read the book to get some knowledge in your head on an abstract overall bird's eye view, so to speak. Okay, and whatever you retain, you'll retain. Believe me, if you read this book and you think you're going to remember everything it says in this book, you're not. I don't care how good you are, unless you have photographic memory, you're just not going to be remembering all the stuff a week later. Okay, so that means you're only going to retain a very small part of it, and of course that defeats the whole purpose. You need to know everything, and that's exactly why I put together this tool, is because that's going to enable you to do just that, to be able to retain, to be able to use, to be able to augment, and to be able to really get the true benefits of this book. So you read the book, you read all the chapters, get done, and then you go back, because it's the kind of book that needs to be read and reread, and you read one chapter at a time. You read the first chapter, and then you start using the tool, the 10 action steps at the end of that chapter, and you go step by step, and you use the tool. And what the tool does, it basically helps you by taking the information for you personally and entering it into the tool, so you have some place where you can store the things that are relevant to you. And this is the brilliant thing about this book, is that David is giving you general information, but David doesn't know your business. Okay, nobody knows your business. You're the only one who knows your business. So if anybody comes to you from the outset saying, "Oh, we can put you in, top 10 on Google, we can do SEO for you," all of that, it's basically, I wouldn't call it blatant lies, although in a lot of cases it is, but it's basically a misconception. And a lot of businesses need to understand, if you just use simple logic, you can clearly see why. These people that come in from the street that offer you anything and everything for X amount of money, they do not know your business. They cannot possibly know your business because they're not in your business. So it's an absolutely logical conclusion that they don't know. Okay, with all my due respect and admiration for David, he doesn't know it either. Okay, he doesn't know what your business is. So what he did that was so awesome is he used his knowledge to bring it forward to you in terms of the book, the chapters themselves, but then the action steps are the things that you do yourself based on this knowledge and wisdom, but applicable specifically for your business. And like I said, that's, to me, that's the part that makes it absolutely brilliant. He's giving you the knowledge, and yet he's letting you customize it to be exactly relevant to your business. Okay, and that's where, again, that's where this tool comes in. So the tool is online, and so what you do is, as you go through these 10 action steps, there's a lot of things that he tells you to strategize, write down, think about this, think about that. There's one part in there that talks about your mission statement. There's a lot of different things that are going on in terms of these action steps. And so I put together this I call it 20-step business blueprint template, or companion tool, whatever you want to call this thing, which is basically a digital online tool that allows you to go through each step. And all these steps, by the way, for each, all the actual steps in the book and all of the action steps for each of those steps, or each chapter, if you will, are all in this tool. So it's exactly the same way it is in the book. But the difference is you're actually putting information here for these steps, and you're actually recording this information and keeping it, and then you're able to go back and look at it anytime you wish. The beauty of Google Forms is they're living everywhere. You can access it from a tablet, you can access it from a desktop, you can access it from PC, even from a Mac if you want, and you can access it from your phones. So all the different devices, mobile, otherwise, everything is synced, so you can get to your specific blueprint for your business from anywhere. You can use it as much or as little as you want, and you can get back to it, and you can continue to add information. So in other words, go through each individual of those 20 steps at your own pace. Go through them from wherever you wish, even if it's somebody else's computer, it doesn't matter. Beauty about Google, you log in with your login and you're done. Don't forget your two-step authentication, make sure you're secure. But basically, you can log in from any computer, from any device, and you can jump right into this tool, and you can see where you're at, and you can make changes as you do something, as you travel, as you talk to your business partners, as you talk to your customers. Things change all the time in business. And so, with that being the case, it's important for you to be able to keep up with the changes and be able to address those changes accordingly. And this tool will allow you to keep all this in one centralized place, and then you go ahead and make the changes as you see fit, And as your business evolves, as things change, you're just going through the motions, making sure everything is up to date, and all the 20 steps that David is telling you to cover and go through, eventually you will get through them all, and then you just maintain it. As your business changes and evolves, you maintain it in the same place. So it becomes one single link. You always go there, and everything is always there for your business. In addition to that, the way it's set up is you can also enter information for additional businesses. For example, if you're a consultant like myself, who not just develops stuff but also consults for other businesses, you can actually then use the same tool. You don't need to use multiple copies. You can just use one. But I'll show you how you can use the form to actually put in multiple entries in there and be able to have different setups for different clients in one place. Or if you're running your own business, you want to have multiple scenarios for SEO because maybe you're running a couple of different either affiliates that are a little bit different, or you're running multiple businesses. This tool will allow you to do that as well. You don't need to have multiple incarnations. So one of the things that in the promo I said that we're going to have what's the similarity between the Beatles and David Amerland and the tool and everything else. And of course the Beatles failed to they were asking for help, but they failed to materialize here. But I noticed in the Hangout, David Amerland just joined us. Hello, David.
Hi. I'm so sorry. I was just caught up in a call. It just finished. I was listening to you in fascination. When you explain it, it sounds so good. I want to go in and feel it in myself.
Absolutely. We'll get to that in a second. So pleasure to have you here, as always.
Likewise.
David, of course, is the brilliant author, analyst, and the gentleman behind who wrote this book. So all the kudos goes to him. It doesn't go to me. But I just came up with the concept of having this kind of tool, which I think it would be extremely helpful for anybody who is reading his book. And so David was gracious enough to let me both put it together and then approved it, and then he recorded kind of introduction video. So when you go into the tool, you can actually listen to a little preface from David himself on the subject. And without any further ado, I hope I gave you a little bit of information about the forms and a little bit behind the scenes of what this tool is for in terms of the relationship to the book and how to go about it. So now I'm going to actually jump into the screen share here, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about and walk you through a little bit. So, and then we'll cover the form part a little bit in terms of using Google Forms for your own purposes as well. But the main emphasis here I want to emphasize is this is about using Google Form in this case to come up with this tool for the use with David's book. And the tool will be available for free to anybody who buys the book. And like I said, it's not, even though you can kind of look through this and you can kind of get ideas and some things about the 20 steps and everything else, you need to read the book. Okay, so I want to make sure I emphasize that this tool is not meant to be used by itself. It needs to be used as a companion to David's book. And even though the action steps are duplicated here in this particular form, you really need to get the book. Okay, so I want to make sure everybody clearly understands that. So with that, let's go ahead and go through there's a little intro there, kind of tells you a little bit about this. And here's the link right here, right in the form there to David's website, where you can see pretty much everything that he's doing and what it's all about, things like that. And then there's a little introduction video from David, which you can listen to when you get your own tool. Down at the bottom of every page, as you can see, there's going to be a little progress bar that will show you how far along you are in this journey. But one thing I wanted to emphasize, not emphasize, but just mention, note, I guess, is that it's not really a representative of how far along you are in your SEO journey, because David's steps are not meant to be like a building thing where you're going from where you're starting from the beginning and you're going to the end. Yes, there are 20 steps, but all of them need to be done for SEO to be at its peak. And so with that being the case, you can't just say, well, I've done first 5 steps, so my SEO is 20% better. It doesn't work like that. You need to really go through all these steps. All of them are equally important and relevant in various areas to build your SEO to where it needs to be. So with that being the case, this little progress bar simply shows you, kind of gives you some visual clue as to how far along in the entire process you are. but in terms of process, meaning in filling out the tool, not where you're at in terms of all of your SEO. You need to get the whole 100% done, and then you're really done with all the steps, but it's not an indication of growth. I hope I don't know, David, I hope I made it clear enough that what this is. I hope it's not confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an important point you're making. I mean, essentially the entire thing about search engine optimization as it stands now is it's a very holistic approach. There are a lot of elements which have to happen, some of them in tandem, some of them sequentially, and some perhaps can happen out of sequence and nothing much will be affected. So it's not a case of going from 1, 2, 3, getting all down to 20. It's a case of starting from your strength, where you're good at right now. So you need to have a certain ability to ascertain that and assess it, and then building from that, because that's the easiest way to grow in a sort of realistic time frame.
Great, great. So that's basically the part there, and then on the left, on the bottom left, you can see you'll have a little continue button, and that continue button will be allow you to go to the next page. So you just keep going to the next, and then when you get to the second page, you also see there will be a back button to go back. So you can go back and forth as much as you want. Just make sure you go ahead and link that particular URL, which you'll have the URL, you'll know what it is, and then you just keep coming back to that same URL, and you just you initially would start out by making a copy of this tool for yourself, which will then become your form with your business information, and then you just kind of run it from there. So we'll cover that a little bit later, but for now we'll just go through the deal. So then when you click on continue, when you fill out the entire page, you get to the next page, and right now we're looking at step 1, and step 1 is called create a Google account. Most of you already probably have Google accounts. If you don't, then this would be time to go ahead and go through the paces, go through the steps to get it done. And that's what I meant when I said that David's book actually starts from somebody who doesn't have anything, and they'll still be able to totally benefit from this book, going all the way from nothing to the end of the road, so to speak. And so over here it says a Google account central to success of your online identity. So there's a little description for each step, and then you actually have each step numbered with the step number and then the action number. So every one of these steps has 10 action numbers. You'll see 1, 1 all the way through 110, and then we start with 2, 1, 3, 1, so on. So the same thing all the way to 20 steps. So all the other pages are identical in that kind of context where you can easily see which step. So if you need to refer back to the book, and if you want to read a particular, like in this case, step 1 means, chapter 1. In the book, it's actually called step number 1. So I'm calling it exactly the same way. So this way you can easily go back and actually read the content of that particular step in the book if you need to refresh yourself a little bit, because David goes in a lot more depth there than I have here. Here I just have action steps and nothing else. And so just, really quickly, we're not going to go through all this, but just to illustrate. So step 1.1, it says create a Google account, go to this URL, and of course you got a URL where to go. Do you have it set up? And so for many of you, you already have it set up. You can just click on yes. For those of you that don't have it, you would go and follow the steps to set one up, and then you click on yes. Why do we have it set up with yes or no? Just for you to basically identify, to make sure you covered that particular item, so you don't, if you're sitting in the middle of the page on step 5, then you may not remember exactly where you finished off. So this gives you a complete, actual indicator indicating yes, you've done this. Okay, and if you answered no, then obviously you need to go and do it. So it's just something it's for nobody else but yourself to go through this thing. So as you go through, you fill out as much or as little of this as you want. Each one of these action steps is clearly spelled out, just like it is in the book. You'll notice that it's exactly the same. In many cases, David has references to external sources, like over here it says if your Google account, in your Google account, you will need to set up security, and then he's got a link to go to that particular, and all of these are live links, so if you click on it, it will take you to that particular URL, and then you can go ahead and do it. And it says you can also step up, set up security, so use two-step verification, you can go here. So David has a lot of these URLs in place, where you can easily go. Don't be afraid to click on any of these things. These are all normal URLs. They don't go to any kind of strange websites. So they're shortened URLs, but they're normal URLs. So definitely feel free to click on any of them. And then at the bottom, as you can see, when I get done, it says I can continue or I can go back. So if I click continue, I'm now at 9% completed in terms of the whole whole tool, I go here. So most of the stuff, once you get with the basics in the beginning of yes, no, and get the basic structure set up, then it goes like step 2 is establish your identity. And then it says establishing your identity is key in the semantic web, okay? And this is where Google is going. Everything is going into the whole concept of semantic web. If you need to read if you need to get in-depth information on semantic web, David has a great book he wrote earlier, his last book before this one, that specifically deals with semantic search and semantic web. And if you want to get more into that, that's where you go to get more information about that. But over here, it just makes a point. And then the whole concept of this tool is for you to be able to record everything relevant to your business, where David is guiding you through the steps of what you need to think about, but in terms of answers to the questions posed, something that only you can answer because you're the only one who knows your business. So step number 2, it says think before you write anything. Work out who your audience is, what do they really need to know, how can you best provide answers to their needs, define your intended audience below. And so here it's a free-form box. You can write as much stuff as you want, so I just start typing. Typing here, as you can see, whatever I want, I can expand. This little box here on the bottom right allows me to make the window larger or smaller as much as I want, so you can easily see everything. And you just put in as much information. You don't need to expand if you don't want to. I mean, it'll still all be there. It'll be just a scroll bar. And you can type as much stuff as you want here, and it's all going to be stored and recorded without you having to do anything. And as you go through these different points here, as I mentioned earlier, you just simply fill these things out. When you're ready to quit, you quit. You simply close the form. You don't have to save anything, do anything else. When you go back to that URL again, for example, if I went back to, prior step here, I'm on prior page, and then I go back to this page again, notice that I still have my text in here. In other words, everything you type in, everything you store in the tool, it's all permanently, automatically recorded, literally within like seconds, or within a second, I should say, most of the time. And so you don't have to worry about it. You just worry about concentrating on thinking of what you need to put in there. And this is the thing I wanted to emphasize, that this is not something you should be doing in half a day. Okay? If you want to do justice to this thing, you really need to sit down. And again, like I said, David is guiding you. He's asking these specific and relevant questions to what you need to consider, but you're the only one that knows your business. So you need to take this question as if he asked you personally and formulate an answer in your mind. How would you describe the answer, and how would you state it? And that's what you record here. And so if it takes you, 2 hours at one point to answer this one single step action point, that's okay. Because again, everything is stored, everything is there, it's not going anywhere. But if you want to do this right, and you want to do this well, you really need to spend some time giving this some thought. And that's precisely why I thought I wanted to have a tool like this, because there's no way I can read David's book enough times to just keep it all in my head. I just can't do it. I can't. It doesn't matter how smart or how dumb I am. I can't do it. Most people can't do it. There's too much stuff. I mean, if you think about the fact that he came up with 200 items you need to give some thought to and do, nobody can remember that kind of stuff. So that's why you use the tool. And at the same time, some of these really require quite a bit of thinking, quite potentially, conversations with customers and vendors and clients and partners and just your own reflection and thinking and rethinking. Just like anything else, if you really want to do it right, you need to put some thought behind it. So this allows you to put your thoughts here. You can augment them at any time, but just keep entering them, changing, reading it. If you absolutely must, you can always click on the print button, print this page, which will show you everything on the printed page. But my recommendation, Mr. I Hate Paper, is don't do this, because it's there on the screen. Like I said, you can easily pull it up on your phone, on your tablet. It's all there. Okay, you can still read it as many times as you want. You can change it as many times as you want. So just keep it there. And then the other biggest problem to me with people printing stuff is once you print it, if you make any changes the next day, your paper is outdated anyway. So basically, you have a stale copy, and that to me is like eating stale bread. Does anybody like to eat stale bread? The same kind of concept. You don't want to be doing that. So that's why, stick to the tool, keep it all there, give sufficient amount of thought to all this stuff, and just keep working on it and working on it and working on it until you're completely 100% done with all the steps. And then you have a blueprint for not only the action plan of what you should be doing, specifically telling you right there, black and white, or whatever color this is, but now you can actually go and use this as a reference to actually take action, or as Tony Robbins would say, take massive action to make this stuff happen for you. And some of these things require just some thinking and strategizing, and some of them require some action, so you actually need to get up and do it. So this is an important point also I want to make, to plug Tony Robbins here, is that nothing gets done unless you actually do it. Reading books and thinking about it and strategizing in your head, that's wonderful. If you don't take any action, it's useless, totally useless. So what you want to do is you want to go through these steps, take appropriate amount of time and thought to put these things together really, really well, implement all the stuff that's in this blueprint in your business, and continue, however long it takes. Maybe it's going to take you 6 months to implement it. Maybe it's going to take you a year. Maybe it's going to take you, a week. It all depends on your business. It all depends on your preferences, your resources. There's a lot of things that play into it. But the important thing is you not only read it and then use the tool, but then take action, okay? And this tool helps you to keep kind of going and taking action on a continuous basis. Next thing that, so in terms of the tool itself, that's basically all pretty much there is to it. You just go through the steps, and it's pretty much the same stuff, so I won't go through every step. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that we also put together a community, which I will, let's see if I can jump here real quick to communities. And that's also an important thing to I apologize for being slow. I should have brought it up earlier. So there's a community that we started called SEO HELP 20 Semantic Search Steps, which is precisely what this book is. I mean, it's community strictly for people that are using the book, and you should see it momentarily here. Come on, Google. There we go. And as you can see, in terms of the steps here, in terms of categories, I should say, not steps, you have all the same 20 steps. And also we have a category called SEO Success Stories, and then general discussion, David's post, which I think I'm going to rename and call it step number unfinished. And that's where all kinds of stuff is going to go from there. So it's going to be, you have 20 steps plus you have this unfinished, where all the stuff will go. But the idea here is when you get into this community and you click on a particular step, say the step that you're working on, this will show you the posts relevant to that particular step. The idea being that you can use the power of community and power of people to both vent your own thoughts, frustrations, whatever it might be, to indicate what's going on with that particular step for your business, so maybe other people can also benefit from what you've done, and vice versa. You're looking at what other people have done in the community for that particular step, because that's the step you're on right now, and then you can get the wisdom and intelligence from them and assistance from them, so you're not going at this thing alone. And David, from time to time, he's a very busy gentleman, but from time to time, hopefully he'll be taking a look and potentially participating to the whatever his time permits. But the idea here is to have the actual community of people who are using the book and using the tool to write some more stuff and kind of get engaged a little bit more, get some additional assistance from other people working on the same stuff. Obviously, your business is different than theirs, but there is, in addition to being unique and different, there's also a lot of similarities. If you're talking about, for example, something like digital profile or Google profile, we all write different profiles, but in terms of what kind of things we should be putting in there or what kind of thinking we should be having when it comes to profiles, those are kind of things that are similar in most businesses. And so by looking at what other people are doing or you showing somebody else what you're doing, you're really kind of helping to kind of kick back and forth some of these thoughts and ideas. And it could be very, very helpful, I think, from that standpoint, to be able to be part of the community that deals with exactly the same kind of thing that you're dealing with. So I think it's a very useful tool. So you have the tool itself, the companion tool, which I showed you, which would be a form that you use all the time for your business, and then you can jump at any point to this point here to either participate in terms of reading what other people have to say or sharing what you have to say to potentially help other people as well. So it kind of handles both things. So with that being the case, before we jump into a little bit more about specifically Google Forms and how I put this thing together, which is not rocket science, but David thought it would be useful to show people, I'm going to turn the floor over to David for a few minutes to say a few words about the whole concept and whatever he wants to say, and then we'll go into the forms part. David?
Oleg, thank you. And first of all, thank you very much for all the hard work on this, because it really looks amazing. What I want to say is that the community side is an opportunity for me to touch base with each of you as the opportunity arises, and actually help answer very specific questions as they come up. And what I'm hoping is, as I do that, because it is visible to everybody in the community, it will actually help augment the value of that interaction. So as I'm answering one specific question, it will allow the proverbial light bulb to go off in somebody else's head within the community as they read it, and it'll hopefully help them do something better or help them see something better. There's a lot of value in communication at that level, and that's what I'm hoping we'll actually be able to establish in the community. So, problems or questions you have, things which are not clear in your head, these are the things which need to come up. The other thing which I will say is that as you go through the form, it is absolutely critical that you are as honest as possible with yourself. And the reason I say this is because I encounter an enormous amount of not entirely dishonesty, but certainly perhaps a certain amount of overestimation in one's abilities as we go through these similar questions or very almost identical questions in a corporate environment, where the answers I get back are certainly not reflective of what I see as the reality, and it takes a little bit of time to strip back the appreciation of what we can do and get to the ultimate value of what we can realistically do. And that's how you need to start. You need none of this is rocket science. It does require a lot of initial hard work, but most of that hard work is at that personal, conceptual value creation level, where you need to very clearly define what you do, why you do it, how you differentiate yourself, how you establish a unique selling point. And then that leads to everything else, because once you have it established, then the question becomes one of a relatively technical character of, how do I project that on the web? And then that becomes very tractable.
Great. Thank you, David, very much for writing the book, for all the hard work and time you spent on it. I mean, big kudos, especially writing it the way you did. Like I said, it's a brilliant way to do it, where on one hand, you don't know how to help people specifically unless they hire you to consult directly for them. On the other hand, the way you've structured it, and hopefully with the use of this tool, people can really, truly get the benefits specific to their own business as if you were doing it specifically for them, which I think is just absolutely brilliant. So thank you again, and I will quickly talk about the form itself, so you have a little bit of a background to potentially you can use this for your own business. If you don't really care about this part, then feel free, you can stop the video right now, and everything I was going to say about the book and the tool I already said. Just simply make sure you have the book, and we'll get, just contact us in some way, and we'll get you the URL if you can't find it yourself. But we're going to put it under the Google templates. You'll be able to find it over there. Just do a search for SEO Help book, and you should be able to find that particular template. And then once you get it for yourself, then you can get working that way. So I'm going to pull up the form here. As you can see, the form is right there. Not the part that people fill out, but the part when you actually edit the form itself. And as you can see, it's 21 pages right now, and there's a little bit at the top here that talks about form settings. So it says show progress bar at the bottom of form pages, so that's why you see the bar there. You can easily turn it off, turn it back on. And also I have it set up where it says only allow one response per person and requires login. Now the reason I check this box is because typically when you fill out forms, you're able to put multiple entries in, and then all these entries go into a spreadsheet. You don't have to do anything, that's just how it works. The problem is in this particular case, what I really wanted is I wanted you to have all of these different steps covered so you can put in all the answers, but there's really only one set, if you will, of information for your business, and you don't need multiple records in there. So that's why I put it in, so there's only going to be one. So when you go back to edit it, it's going to be doing it over and over and over for the same information. That's what this is for. If you need multiple capability to do multiple entries, then we'll talk about that in a few minutes here, but for now just leave this on so there's only one. If you only are going to do it one time for your one business, then you leave this on. And that means Google will automatically pull up and tell you that you already have the information there. Do you want to edit it? You say, yeah, I want to edit it, and it'll let you go ahead and see all your current entries, and you can change it to whatever you want. The next question, obviously, you want to leave alone. It says shuffle question order. You don't want to shuffle anything. So you leave that alone. Then you have the actual form itself. As you can see on the form, you can have just plain old text fields, sections. You can have, headings that look bold and big. You don't have any control over that, by the way, just the way Google does it. And they do have various themes that they call it, which makes it look with a different font, but the idea with size and everything, you don't have any control over that other than that. And it's okay. And all these forms, as you can see, it's a little bit on the narrow side. The reason for that is because it's meant to be used on mobile devices. So when you have a small phone, the form will still work on the phone. It'll still look good, and it'll still work exactly as it's supposed to work. Same thing on the tablets. But that's why they kind of keep it so it works on all the devices. Over here, this will be, you'll see, you saw that there was actually a link to David's website, so you can have links in these forms. And also you can insert not only images at different points in the form, but also you can embed videos. So as you can see, I embedded the introduction video by David right there into the form. So that's very easy to set up. You just basically do insert, and you got all these different things you could put in your form. You got text, you got paragraph, which is basically long text. You can get multiple choice, you got check boxes, you can do pull down menus, you can even have things like scale and grids. Like I was setting up a form for one of my clients, and they want to be able to, it's a client feedback form, customer feedback form. And so for that, it's nice where people just simply click, how do you like our food? Well, they have a little, 5 little radio buttons, and on the left side it says didn't like it, and on the right side it says loved it, or whatever words you want to use on left and right, and that way people can easily click and vote that way. You also are able to do grids, where you have multiple things going left and right, going down and going sideways, and then people select the check boxes or radio buttons actually in between. You can also incorporate dates and times, and it's got a nice little calendar it puts in and stuff, makes it very simple. You can do section headers, like this thing at the top here, it's a section header as they call it, so it breaks up the information, and you're able to put a heading, and you're able to put as much of other text as you wish. They also have page breaks, which allow you to have this continue button, and so people are doing one page at a time, and that's where you see this thing here. You can see there is a page break right there, and I have each one of the steps David has in the book or chapters has a page break right there. Also, you can put in images. If you want to put your company logo up at the top or anything else, you can do that, and you can embed videos just like I did here. So essentially, you have a lot of flexibility in what you can put in. In terms of your responses, you can view them by clicking on this View Responses button here, which will take you to a spreadsheet. Right now, I don't have anything in it because it's just with all the work I'm doing and working on everything here, I haven't even started doing my own deal. But I will, David, I promise. And so this is where the answers will go. As you can see, all the information is here, and this is where the answers for the spreadsheet will have your answer. You don't need to look at it, because that's where it's going to be stored. You can also, up at the top here, you will see where it says responses, it says 0. In your case, it'll say 1 once you actually start putting some information. If you do have multiple entries, let's say you do a customer feedback form, then you will have as many records as there are, so you can quickly see what it is. And you're also able to see what they have a responses summary, where they show you graphical like little pie charts and stuff indicating precisely where your breakdown is in terms of who responded to what. I mean, it's really slick. You don't need to do any programming. It's very, very convenient to be able to look at either all the responses or look at summary. They call it summary responses. Very handy. And you can also at any point in time, you can click on summary, you can click, I'm sorry, on accepting responses, this option here, and it'll stop. So whenever somebody tries to get into the form, it'll tell them, that's it, you know, the form has been closed and they can't put any more responses. So you can do these things from time to time, easily stopping people entry from being able to enter stuff, and then, you know, reopening it again anytime if you need to, or just stopping it completely very easily with just a selection here. You can also change response destination, meaning the answers will not go to a particular spreadsheet that Google generates, but you can have it going to your own spreadsheet with a totally different spreadsheet with a different name and stuff if you wish. That's doable. Another thing you can do, you can unlink the form from the responses, which typically you won't do, so I won't even go into it. Just don't touch that option because you'll screw things up, trust me. And one of the really nice features is this get pre-filled URL. For example, one of the things I did for my son's school is I set up a form for people to check in and out when they go to school, kind of like, you know, just so when parents show up, they can do a quick sign-in type deal. A lot of businesses use the check-in, yet they use different software for that. Well, it's very easy to set up a form to do it, and then what you do is every day you come in, you run the form, you enter the information, and it records automatically date and time. Every time you store an entry, it records date and time of when that record was added, so that's automatically in there. But in my case, for this particular form dealing with, you know, coming to school every day, I was indicating the name of the parent and also the name of the child. And after one day, to be honest with you, it got old. I mean, I don't want to keep putting my name over and over and over and over. So Google allows you to actually pre-fill in certain fields, even all fields if you wish. In my case, it's all fields. And then they give you a unique URL, and then if you use that unique URL instead of the regular form URL, then when you bring up that URL, the form will automatically have that information already pre-filled. So when I pull up my son's form, the check-in form, in fact, what I'll do is I'll for a second stop the share here, and I'll go to my phone here and go to show you that basically this is the form here, and it's loading right now. And as you can see, it comes up. It looks nice, looks, you know, nice on the phone and everything. Check-in form, but as you can see, when it came up, it already has parent name and child name filled in into the form itself. And all I have to do is click submit, and that's it. It says, you know, your response has been recorded, thanks, and that's it. So essentially, it makes it much, much easier to fill out information because the form already has certain or all fields pre-filled. Sometimes that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense to do that. In this case, it makes all the sense in the world because I'm lazy. I don't want to be typing the same stuff all the time. And so, but seriously though, it's definitely a very useful tool. Getting back to the share here, in terms of other things, here you can see I have different, you know, each entry here can be changed. And you can easily, when you do forms, you can easily type in the title. You have a little help text that shows up right under the whatever the actual question or title for that particular entry is. You indicate what kind of field it is. In my case, it's multiple choice, but I can select from any of these. And you can even set up a checkbox here. It says go to page-based answer. So if they pick a specific option, you can actually have then the computer go to a particular URL, which is also handy for in some cases to be able to do that. They also have ability to indicate if the question is required or not. By the way, all the questions on this form for the book are not required. All of them are optional, specifically so you can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and do it that way. Okay? So that's that. And if you do have some questions that are required, you just simply check the box, and then the form will not let the user bypass the answer and go to the next page or get out, submit, until they fill it in. So you can easily have a combination of required questions, non-required questions with a simple check. They also have this advanced setting which allows you to set up, it says shuffle option order, so I guess it's not too useful in most cases anyway. And they also have ability, you can also do some verification of data in a very small way, basically. For the most part, just consider this data will not be verified. But once you get done, you click done, that's it. And then one of the things that's very convenient also is when you're entering a bunch of fields that are essentially similar, they have ability to click on the duplicate here, and it'll make a copy of that particular whole thing the way you set it up, make exact copy of it, and then you can just change whatever you need to change. So it really improves the speed of how fast you can throw some of these questions together. Okay. So basically, I mean, that's kind of the main things. Obviously, you can delete any of these items by clicking on the little delete box right there. And so there's all the stuff. You can see it's a pretty lengthy thing because David doesn't do anything on a small scale. Everything has to be massive and stuff. So it's all there. And then at the bottom thing, the last thing I was going to say is there's this little note, text field at the bottom that says confirmation page, and the default just says your response has been recorded. So you can feel free to change it to say thank you, whatever you want to say. Basically, you can say that here, and then you have the checkboxes here that says show link to submit another response. So a lot of times, if you're doing a form where you do data entry and you're entering multiple things, you don't want to be constantly jumping and pulling up this URL over and over and over. What you want is you want to submit a form. It comes back with this confirmation little screen, and then you want to be able to click a link right there on that screen to say, go back and enter a new entry again. And it just keeps going and going until you finally quit. So that's very useful to have that in these kind of cases. You just in my case, I'm not doing it because I want you to basically put in just one response and you stick augmenting that response over and over, so that's why I don't have it checked. But if you were going to have some kind of poll or some survey or anything else, then you might want to have this on if you want them to put in multiple responses, or if you just have data entry person in your company doing things and that they're putting a bunch of records, you want to have this checked on. Publish and show public link for form results. Every form can be public, and then you can have, it'll give you a link, and then you can share it with anybody you want as a link, and people will be able to find it publicly in Google. So it'll be, official form available to anybody. And then the last thing, which is important for this form, is allow responders to edit responses after submitting. By default, when you use a form, when you enter your information and you click submit, you're done. You can add more stuff if you're running the form again, and if it's set up to allow you to do more. But you cannot augment information unless you physically go into the responses spreadsheet and just manually change it. So with this option here, you're actually able to go back if you know the link. This is the key here, and we'll talk about this in a second. And you can go ahead and then augment information. And so I'll show you now. I'm going to go to the live form, and I'll show you what I mean by this by simply submitting something in here. And